My name is Leisha Strachan, and I am listening, or you are listening, to the Thousand a Second album podcast. And I invite you to listen to Take Me There by Delta Ray.
Hi, I'm Jeff Stephen, and you're listening to the 1000 Second Album Podcast. This season, we'll be talking about must-hear songs as I continue to ask people that are important to me all about the music that's important to them. Enjoy! Please welcome Leisha Strachan.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeff.
And thank you for coming. It's the first guest actually from Manitoba as well, which is lovely to have more of the Canada geography represented as well. So.
Yes, I'm happy to represent Manitoba anytime.
Love it. And the song of choice today is "Take Me There" by Delta Ray. And if I could ask you the first question, what would be your introduction to the band?
So I came across the band in 2020, or I want to say more like 2019. I probably have come across them. So I came across the band initially because I do choreography in the sport of baton twirling. And I was just looking for some pieces of music for senior athletes. And they have a song called Bottom of the River that people probably know a little bit more. It's one of maybe their most known piece, I guess. And look it up on YouTube. It's great. And I started choreography to this piece and I just loved everything about it. And then the pandemic happened. So these athletes ended up never actually being able to perform this particular routine that I loved so much. And side note, I'm using the same piece of music, same edit with a different senior pair, actually, ironically from Ontario. And they're using it this season instead. So at least it'll be seen. So that was my introduction to the band. And then, just during the pandemic, they actually did everyone was doing little challenges, to keep people occupied. And they were doing a challenge. It was kind of a dance challenge, I guess, to one of their songs. And they were getting people to just like copy one of the bandmates did a little ditty dance. And they're getting people to do it as a challenge. And of course, I do baton. And I was bored in the pandemic. And so I was outside in my backyard doing a lot of like choreography and fooling around and kind of making up new tricks and just trying to think of things. And I saw this challenge and I made my athletes do it along with me. I said, just put baton to this dance thing and, keep yourself occupied. And I recorded mine and I posted it. And then they like reposted it. And all these people were reposting this short little baton number to one of their songs. And I think from then I was like, oh my gosh, they just seem like a band that's very endearing and loves the public. And last story with this band is that, particularly with this song, is that I was dancing a lot in the pandemic. So I love to dance. And I was taking a lot of classes online. And one of my favorite choreographers, well, now my favorite choreographer, I was introduced to him during the pandemic. He was doing online classes. And there's a dancer that I was following who did one of his combinations to this song, to Take Me There. And the combination just looked so fun. And I was like, okay, next time he does a class, I'm going to take it. He never did end up using Delta Ray again in his classes, but his classes are just so great. So I feel like that was my introduction also again to the band. And when I found out, oh, this is Delta Ray, like I used them, for this other piece a year ago and they're coming up again. So I figured I should invest and support these artists. So bought their album and it was just a really nice, different change of pace for me. I'm usually always listening to R&B, jazz, pop songs, like things on the radio. And it was just this departure of this indie band that clearly has been around a long time. Their music's just really tight. And they just you can just tell by listening to the music that they have a fun time together and recording together. Yeah, I just love their energy. And so that's how I kind of got introduced to them. And it's been a really great journey.
Oh, I love it. Nice. And it's interesting. There's so many stories of musicians that have that long lost album or the album that was recorded but never released and that sort of thing. So, but I guess that must have happened a lot during the pandemic of the choreo routine that just ended up going on the shelf or that sort of thing. So I'm pleased you got to at least Delta Ray and Leisha were able to combine for that that challenge. That sounds wonderful that it was a silver lining there at least.
Yeah, I'm excited this season to like actually see it competed on the floor, this song to be in this realm of baton. And I think other people have probably used it before in our sport because of the dynamics and the change of pace of that particular song of Bottom of the River. And you should listen to it next, right after we're done talking here. Um, but it just changes so much, and it's so interesting to listen to. And that's the type of things I like to do choreography to, because it's not boring, and the athletes like it. Yeah, so I'm excited to see it hit the floor.
For sure. And I'm glad you mentioned the other track too, the Bottom of the River, because when I was thinking about my introduction to the band, well, my introduction is through you because they're one that I wasn't aware of at all somehow. But I find that these are really neat for me to learn about these new to me artists because they send you down those proverbial rabbit holes where like the rabbit holes often get a bad name, but in this case, I think it's a wonderful thing because this song sort of hooked me in right away. And with some of the other ones I've heard, I'm like, oh yeah, this looks really promising. So I'm excited to check out more beyond the one must hear and the others that would
Yes,
also qualify as well.
for sure.
Nice.
Yes.
But zooming in on this particular track, so Take Me There, what is it that appeals to you in particular about this song?
Hmm. I love the lyrics, and I don't know if it was the condition of the pandemic too. Everyone was just feeling so like down, you're by yourself. And like this was just one of those tracks that I could put on and just dance to in my house and sing at the top of my lungs. I know whenever it's still in my rotation of, songs. And whenever it comes up, I never pass it. I never skip it. And I think that's when you're asking me about a must hear song, that's to me one of the first criteria is that whenever, doesn't matter how old it is, no matter when it comes on, you never skip it. And I never skip it. I always sing it like at the top of my lungs in my car, wherever I am. Always makes me move. And it's big and it has like those big chorus notes in it. And it's just fun. And so I think fun is just the word. I can't think of another word that explains it, but it's just fun. And it was just perfect song for the pandemic, just to keep your spirits up and get motivated to move. And it's so great that way. So I think that's what draws me to it.
For sure. And you used the word fun. The word I scribbled down on my sheet of paper here was the word joyous. And which again
Yes.
they're in the same sort of realm there. And there was certain parts of it in particular, like you mentioned that the vocals as well, just it's almost like a choir. I guess there must be many of them in the band that are singing at any one time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And every time I hear it, I hear something different, right? Like
Yes.
I hear just a different like background little voice or little instrument. I always hear something and it's always surprising. I was like, oh, I never heard that before. And I go back and I listen to it, and I just love the vocals. The words are simple, but they're still put together in a way that's interesting. I love the ending. I just think it's like such a powerful big ending. And anytime you end with a note at the end, when someone gets to hold something, anytime that happens in a musical, I love watching musicals. Anytime someone gets to hold a big note at the end and finish, it's just so satisfying. And so I think I get that same feeling at the end of it, just like she just belts out this note. It's just great. I love it.
Yeah. And you're not alone there either. And so the what's neat too is that like you mentioned the sort of like the sort of different things are revealed every listen. What I thought was particularly impressive too, going down a bit of the YouTube journey with them as well, is that like in the studio recording here, the percussion is just enormous and it's like it feels like it would just fill a stadium. But then when I
Yeah.
heard them doing I guess it was sort of like a live session at a radio station or something like that. They switched to instead of the electric guitars, it's acoustic guitars, and the drummer's just sort of standing playing the side of a drum. Like, but it still sounds phenomenal because then the vocals are elevated that much more, and yeah, just really, really
Totally.
impressive.
Like the band itself reminds me like very akin to Walk Off the Earth, the Canadian band. And we know they are just like all incredible musicians who can cover anything. And they're so ingenious and smart with the way they use instruments. And they kind of like, for me, are they kind of the American version of that. And I love Walk Off the Earth, all their cover. I've used their covers so much for baton stuff too. I think that they'd have that same kind of band feel, that they're a family, that there's a family and they just love producing music together. And whether it's an acoustic version, I'm gonna have to look up the acoustic version now because I haven't looked it up on YouTube, but I will because I just love it. And but they just seem like that kind of family. And I think this song you just like turn up, and as you
Yeah.
said, like it has those big, big parts, and then it has like the quiet part in the middle,
Yes.
and then it just ramps up again. Like I just think it's smart music.
Yeah.
And you can see their musicianship, as simple as the words are. You can just tell them they change bars, they change the timing throughout. It's not always 4/4 the entire time. It feels like it, but they change the phrasing so that it's interesting. Like it's a great piece.
Yeah. Nice. And you mentioned Walk Off the Earth with their covers. One of the ones that I stumbled upon was these folks did a cover of Fleetwood Mac's The Chain, which is again, it's an ambitious
Yes,
cover and they nailed it. So
they're
they can
amazing.
play.
Incredible. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. And the so you did allude to it a bit earlier as to
Mhm.
the purpose of this project is I'm asking people to describe a must-hear track. So in addition to this being a fantastic song in itself by a group that's beyond capable, what is it that makes Take Me There particularly must-hear?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a particularly it's a particularly must hear, I think, because of just the way you feel when you're listening to it. And I think that's with any piece of music that you want to listen to over and over again. I think it's just one of those songs that I think can really become an anthem to people, and can just dance in your kitchen. It's literally one of those songs you can put on and just dance in your kitchen. And for me, that's what makes it a must hear song, is I can listen to it and it just like immediately my heart is happy just listening to it. So it's funny because I was introduced to the band with those two songs, but I started following them on Instagram, their social medias, and I always see like, do they ever come to Canada when they're touring, which is usually not, but usually in the States. And then they put an ad out just right before Christmas. They put a Instagram post with the whole band, because I guess they're kind of separated now in different places, but they're saying we're still making music, we're just taking a hiatus because they have a
Mhm.
couple band members who are expecting children, and taking a little bit of a hiatus, but they're like, but we're gonna be back. I think they released like one other song just to like hold people
To
while
tide
they
us
take this,
over.
yeah, while they take this little break and kind of regroup. They're like, we're regrouping, as we kind of figure out this new phase of life, but we're all like committed to the band and committed to making music and touring again, so it's going to be really interesting to see what they do next.
Oh, nice. And it's from my very limited experience with them too. They seem to be really versatile because in the playlist I had set up, it went from this song right into another one called No Peace in Quiet, which was
Mm-hmm.
again just a total 180, but no less effective. Like it was so just moving in the like this other direction, which is pretty neat. So yeah, who knows
It
like yeah, what they'll come up with
yes,
next.
keep listening to them. I think there's a song called, I'm getting it wrong, but I feel like it's The Wrong Ocean, I want to
Mhm.
say, and it has a whole different kind of song to feel to it. But it's another song that when it's on, I usually listen to it. And I love that they're really vulnerable with their fans. You can tell like they put a lot of their own stories and a lot of their music. And Wrong Ocean to me is one of those that kind of just talks about their journey, and or people's journey in terms of like deciding where to be and where's home. The decisions you have to make as a musician if you want to make it. But at the end of the day, like home is really where your heart is. And
Yeah.
so I feel like that song's really all about that as well. And yeah, even just on that one album, there's just so many different themes. And I'm glad I like invested in the album
Mhm.
and bought it and listened to it in order, because the whole story, instead of just listening to singles, you want to listen to the whole album and get a sense. And I think by the end of it, you really get a sense of who the band is and who they are, and what they want to bring to the world, which is just beautiful, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, they definitely brought a lot of fun and joy with this one for sure. And I think earlier I scribbled down as well. You mentioned you did it with the choreo, like how they lend themselves so well to the choreography with the baton. I had thought when I first heard it, it felt almost like one of those songs that you'd see at the end of an Olympic Games, and they're sort of showing the montage of all the things that had happened. And this feels
Yes.
like it would capture emotional ride pretty nicely there.
Totally, absolutely. And I remember, I think right after, like when I was listening to this song on repeat, when I first heard, I was like, oh, I had like one athlete in mind. I was like, they would do this song amazing. And then the pandemic hit
I
and
was gonna
we didn't get to
say.
do it as an individual, like just that song, you know? I was like, oh, they would just do it so well. So I haven't used it yet in like individual choreography for some. I
Yes.
have to have the right person because
Yes.
clearly has to be someone who can emote,
Yeah. Oh
who
yeah.
can entertain and who can live up to the strength of the music, right? Someone who's a
Yes.
really strong athlete. So it's going to be in my back pocket
Yes.
for a little while until I find the right person. And when I
Yeah.
do, I'll send you a random video clip.
Oh, please do.
So you
No.
can see. But there's songs you have to have a certain amount of maturity too. It's
Yes.
not just strength, but it's maturity in terms of understanding. For Take Me There, you know, the wanting a partner, wanting someone by your side, you know, and like
Yeah.
wanting that love and wanting that, and you have to have mature athletes who kind of have a little bit of experience in that, right, to get that
Yeah.
across properly. So one of these days it'll make an appearance, I think. But for now, I'm going to keep it to myself and just
Yeah.
listen.
No, no, you're totally right. Where it can't just be a technically proficient performer, it has to be somebody who's actually fully feeling it as well. So yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Nice. And the other one that came to mind for me too is there's the close speaking of sort of like memorable visuals, the closing scene in Casablanca where I won't attempt a Humphrey Bogart accent or impression, but where he says, "I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship," and this feels like the kind of song for me where it's the great starting point to again immerse further, which for me was a nice that was I think that was part of my initial interpretation of the words must hear, but I think I'm going to borrow your idea of must hear equals never skip from now on as well, because I think that fits really nicely too.
Yes, yeah. Never skip and get up and move.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, a huge thank you for coming today, Leisha, and until the next time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
This has been the 1,000-Second Album Podcast. Thanks for sharing some of your time, energy, and attention with us today. Take care.